Throughout fighting game history, few lines have captivated players' imagines quite as well as "you must defeat Sheng Long to stand a chance." This iconic line, uttered as a wing quote, would lead to all sorts of speculation from arcade goers, with many hypothesising who exactly this character was and how players could defeat him. Famously in 1992, EGM would publish an article providing players with instructions on what they needed to achieve in order to unlock a boss fight against this mysterious opponent. But you will likely know this would turn out to be no more than an amazing April Fool's Day prank. The truth was that the name Sheng Long that was used in the game was no more than a mistranslation of the word Dragon Punch, with the wing quote being corrected with future iterations of the game. While this in itself is true, the story behind Sheng Long runs much deeper than this. And if Sheng Long isn't really a Street Fighter character, then why did the bloody Street Fighter 2 official Super Nintendo manual not only reference him, but tell us that Master Sheng Long trained both Ryu and Ken? As you can tell from this alone, the Sheng Long rabbit hole goes deeper than merely a mistranslation and clever April Fool's Day joke, so let's cover this almost mythical character's amazing legacy today. With all this said, hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. This is the story of Sheng Long. Yeah! While the mistranslation that appeared in the arcade game was blatantly unintentional, there is no doubt that it didn't have a huge impact on Street Fighter's lore and future. For starters, the EGM article on the character would serve as inspiration for the inclusion of a real secret character in the game, Akuma, who could be unlocked as an opponent in exactly the same manner as EGM's Sheng Long hoax. So, could an argument be made that Akuma and Sheng Long are one of the same? Well no, but they are certainly connected further, which we shall be discussing in more depth soon. But for now, let's switch back gears to Sheng Long being referenced in the game's Super Nintendo manual. The North American manual would clearly outline that he was Ken and Ryu's master, which is amusing considering the mistranslation itself was already removed by the time this home port was released, with Ryu's wing quote instead reading, "You did quite well, but you need more training to defeat me." This seems to indicate that work on the manual commenced before the quote was translated correctly, leading to the writers of the manual to simply take a stab at who Sheng Long must be. Either way, from this alone, a case can be made that instantly this character was canon to the English versions of the game, mistake or not. Building on Sheng Long's legacy, as of August 1993, Malibu Comics would begin publishing a series that was based on Street Fighter 2, which would include, you guessed it, the character known as Sheng Long. Here he is depicted with a grey beard, looking much older than Ryu and Ken. Unfortunately, we did not get long to learn about this depiction of the fighter though, as after just 3 issues in print, the Street Fighter Malibu comic was cancelled, allegedly due to the fact that Capcom were not happy how their characters were being portrayed. It is of note that these comics were more realistic and graphically detailed than the games, and included even more brutal violence. What we would get from this now obscure media though was a part of the story where a girl named Nida, who apparently trained under Sheng Long alongside Ryu and Ken, accuses the white-wearing Hadouken thrower of poisoning his master. It later unfolds though that this is obviously not the case, and the individual responsible was a clone of Ryu created by M. Bison. Wacky stuff. Speaking of wacky stuff, while I still have tons of cool Sheng Long trivia to share with you, I would just like to give you a quick thank you to everyone who has subscribed to this channel recently. You're really helping me in the algorithm, resulting in the most views this channel has ever received in 1 month. So if you like retro gaming and fighting game trivia, please hit that subscribe button, as I have plenty more free entertainment for you to enjoy in the future. Thanks for helping me make these. Now, on with the video. With Sheng Long being depicted in multiple American sources as Ken and Ryu's master, that very same year Ryu and Ken would be given a master in Japanese media too. First appearing in Masaomi Kenzaki's Street Fighter 2 manga in 1993. This manga mini-series was serialised within Family Computer magazine. In this depiction, the master character was not named Sheng Long but instead Go-Ken. But appearance-wise, his look matched the EGM April Fool's Day prank and Malibu Comics depiction. In this outing, Ryu discovers that Go-Ken has been left for dead by Street Fighter 2 primary antagonist M. Bison, and after hearing his master's last words, and assuming Ken to be dead too, Ryu becomes a wandering wayfarer. Despite Ken and Ryu's master being referred to as Go-Ken in this Japanese manga, this would not spell the end to references to Sheng Long over in America. In fact, he would be included as part of yet another Street Fighter video game's story. The fighting game I'm referring to is the arcade version of Street Fighter, the movie, the video game, whereby Sheng Long is referenced in the endings of Ken, Ryu and Akuma. These endings not only reveal that he is Ken and Ryu's master, but that Sheng Long is also the brother of Akuma. As stated in the thumbnail of this video, Sheng Long is very much real. To make this chapter of Street Fighter history even crazier, is that in 2007 even more information on Sheng Long and the Street Fighter movie game would surface. You see, game designer Alan Noon would reveal to Shoryuken.com that not only was Sheng Long referenced in the game, but the original plan was for him to appear as a playable character in this one too. Characters beyond those who had appeared in the feature film were greenlit for this one, with Akuma obviously being amongst them. The designer had asked Capcom permission to include Sheng Long as a fighter in the game, and surprisingly, he was granted permission. Sadly though, with him nowhere to be seen in the game, the character would be left out due to time constraints, but a lot of headway was made in his production. The process had, for example, seen Louis Mangubat, one of the game's artists, posing as Sheng Long to be digitised, and Noon reveals much more about this depiction of the fighter too. According to StreetFighterFandom.com, Noon gave him black gi pants and a long green padded quilted sleeveless gi style top, which was tied off the black belt. Long white braided hair, a Fu Manchu moustache, a thick black ribbon over his eye due to being blinded by Akuma, and one hand taking the form of a dragon's claw, described as a result of his power being so advanced that he began to physically manifest dragon-like attributes. Moving into the Street Fighter Alpha era of the franchise, the video games and supporting media around them would all start referencing Ken and Ryu's master under the name of Goken, the same name that had appeared previously in the Family Computer Magazine manga. Just like Sheng Long in the Street Fighter movie game, Goken here would be positioned as Akuma's brother, and once again as Ken and Ryu's master. The key difference now though from all previous tellings was that Akuma was said to have killed his brother, defeating him in a battle to the death. Progressing into 1997 in the era of Street Fighter 3 games, EGM would see if they could have lightning strike twice by publishing yet another hoax based around Sheng Long. This time they would give the character an even more defined appearance, and outline that to unlock a fight against him involves getting 6 perfects. To make the article more believable, they would outline that Sheng Long was the international name for the character Goken, which in my opinion certainly seemed to have been true. They would further evidence this by pointing out that in Japan, Akuma is known as Goki, so both brothers had localized names, which again made perfect sense. They would even outline additional information about Sheng Long's appearance in Street Fighter 3, including listing his moveset and super arts, outlining that his third super attack was a stronger version of Akuma's Shungoku Satsu. Fast forwarding years into the future, in 2008 Street Fighter 4 producer Yoshinori Ono would be interviewed by EGM. Here he would state to them that let's just say that jokes that your magazine have reported in the past might find their way into the game as fan service. This would obviously leave the magazine speculating that Sheng Long was coming to Street Fighter 4, or as he is known in Japan, Goken. In a follow-up to this comment, Ono would be questioned by OneUp.com about Sheng Long's potential playable debut, with Ono replying, "Are you coming to the Tokyo Game Show? How about you ask me that question again then?" Moving on to the April 1st, 2008 Street Fighter 4 development blog, it would imply that Sheng Long could be unlocked in Street Fighter 4 by achieving certain in-game feats. This was generally met with yawns from the general public, as many felt it was pretty unimaginative to pull the same joke for a third time. On April 2nd, the website confirmed that it was indeed a joke and explained the origin of Sheng Long, while adding Sheng Long is still now and always will be truly a character of legend. Fortunately though, this would be far from the end of this story, as what Ono had previously referenced indeed turned out to be true. Capcom revealed that Goken would be a playable fighter within Street Fighter 4, with Ono confirming that his inclusion was a result of fans asking them to include Sheng Long in the game. One of Goken's titles in the game would even be aka Sheng Long, confirming once and for all that Sheng Long and Goken were indeed one and the same, even if the reference is a bit tongue-in-cheek. Inspired by April Fool's jokes and mistranslations or not, a playable version of Sheng Long was finally in a mainline Street Fighter game. But keeping all of this in mind, If such a character had already apparently been murdered by Akuma in the past, how does he fit into the game's story? After showing up in the first version of Street Fighter IV as a long-awaited secret opponent, in Super Street Fighter IV his story is somewhat retconned from the Alpha games. Essentially, instead of being killed by Akuma, Akuma puts him in a multi-year long coma. After awakening, Goken watches over his students' progress. However, when the opportunity arises, he makes the decision to go one step further, entering Street Fighter IV's Sin Tournament and testing their strength in combat himself. Over the course of the Street Fighter Alpha games and Street Fighter IV, Akuma had been making multiple attempts to corrupt Ryu by tempting him into giving into the Dark Shadow, the same power and murderous intent wielded by Akuma. In his quest to find an opponent on his level, Akuma desires Ryu to do the same, with the character Evil Ryu functioning as an alternative timeline version of what would happen should Ryu choose to walk the dark path. In Super Street Fighter IV, Goken manages to seal the Dark Shadow, so Ryu would never have to suffer at the hands of the power again. This leads to Akuma becoming enraged by his brother, but does identify how Goken did it. This was done by the power of nothingness, somewhat of a light alternative to Akuma's darkness. The brothers then fight each other in a rematch of the century, with Ryu's future being the prize in mind. The result of this encounter is not shown, but bearing in mind Ryu doesn't become a Dark Shadow wielder, we can guess that the winner was Goken. Ryu and Ken try to convince their master to hang around, but he informs them that they are now grown men and no longer need a master. While not playable, he would show up again as part of Street Fighter V's story, appearing in a sparring contest with Ryu, but his involvement in this one is minimal at best. Still, past the point of Goken becoming a playable fighter in Street Fighter IV, in 2017 Capcom would reference the name Sheng Long again. This time a profile would be created using the name as part of the Shadaloo Combat Research Institute that could be found on the Capcom Fighters Network website. This satirical write-up outlines that his moves are impossible to counter-attack and always register as counter hits, and that anyone that sees him will die after 24 hours. They even reference that he has the ability to shapeshift and change into different characters, an obvious nod to the infamous Rainbow Edition ROM hack that would inspire the speed found in Turbo Hyper Fighting. It's amusing that they poked at the legend of Sheng Long post the days of marrying up his identity with Goken. Anyway, to give an idea of how legendary the name Sheng Long is, there is even a reference to it within the Disney movie Wreck-It Ralph, where behind Fix-It Felix Jr., writing can be found behind them stating Sheng Long was here. Speaking of Street Fighter characters being in a Disney movie, is there anyone else out there that is bothered that they purchased Marvel and got the license to use Street Fighter characters in a film, but they still never have produced a Marvel vs Capcom movie? Come on Disney, fix this. You know it would print cash. Just shut up and take my money. So from all of this, I hope you can fully appreciate how much history a simple mistranslation in a video game would form, and can acknowledge that the legend of Sheng Long is indeed true. Sheng Long is real, and I look forward to seeing him make appearances in many more video games to come. Anyway, if you enjoyed this one, make sure you subscribe and check out my upload on the Lost Tekken Cross Street Fighter game. Yeah, cheerio.